Council will call the meeting order. For the record, it's July 15th, 2025 at 4:30 PM. We'll begin this afternoon's work session with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh. Councilwoman Little Roberts. Here. Councilman Overton.
Here.
Councilman Whitlock.
Here.
Councilwoman Strader. Here. Mayor Simonson.
Here. Next item up is adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
no changes to today's workshop agenda, so I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is agreed to. Next up is the consent agenda.
Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
we approve the consent agenda for the mayor to sign, the clerk to attest.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is agreed to. There are no items moved from the consent agenda, so we'll move on to Department Commission reports. First item up is item 4, which is proposed updates to Title 4, Chapter 1, Meridian City Code per Idaho Code Section 50-3442. Mrs. Kane.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, members of council. It's on? Yes. I'm Emily Kane. I'm a deputy city attorney in the city attorney's office. I'm here to talk to you about a proposed change to city code. The, oh. Oh, yeah. Okay. This code change is necessitated by a new piece of legislation that was adopted this spring. It's a change to Idaho Code Section 5344, which is the provision that governs cities' authority to operate solid waste collection systems. So a new provision was added that says that notwithstanding any franchise agreement, any person may contract with a solid waste collection provider of the person's choosing for the use of solid waste collection services for temporary projects. So containers that are temporary and project specific as defined by city ordinance. So this is a change for us. We do have a franchise agreement in place, so we need to look at changing our ordinance or adding to our ordinance to react to this. I'm going to start with some things that won't change. We do have an exception in our compulsory use provision. So everyone in the city has to use our franchisee Republic Services solid waste collection services. And there are some exceptions. And one exception that we already have on the books is for construction projects and landscaping projects. So those companies or those projects can haul their own solid waste. So they often do. Sometimes they contract with Republic Services, but they sometimes haul their own waste from site. So that's an exception to our compulsory use provision that will not change. So this really doesn't relate to construction projects or landscaping. Our franchise agreement does not need a change. It has a provision that says that our franchisee does their service in accordance with city code. So a change to the city code will be adequate to govern the new way of doing things. There are provisions that govern how we do the change, how we make the change to Title 4, Chapter 1, which is our solid waste code, and we have complied with that. So the proposed update, there are a number of changes that we're proposing. They're all to achieve this accommodation of temporary projects. So I'll kind of hit the highlights here. We would add a definition of temporary project, and we're proposing that we define temporary project as an activity that is 90 days or less in duration that generates solid waste. We would propose a change to clarify that the compulsory use provision does have exceptions. That's something that actually would clarify our code overall. So we would then also add an exception for temporary projects. So it would say any person may contract with a solid waste collection provider of the person's choosing for the use of solid waste collection containers and collection services for a temporary project. So that language closely mirrors the state code. So it's clear that that is the purpose of the exception. As part of this, we would establish some minimal standards for the temporary haulers that are now an exception to the the franchise agreement. So we would say the temporary project container can be used for no longer than 90 days. If it's longer than 90 days, now we're back in the world of our franchisees. So any project longer than 90 days would still have to use Republic services. There can be one temporary project per property per calendar year. The container could not be used for other kinds of waste, or especially not prohibited waste. The temporary project container would identify the provider's name and phone number, and this would help the city contact that provider if we needed to. That's something new. The temporary project waste would need to be collected at least once a month, or if necessary, with more frequency, and then no wheeled carts. We would also clarify that on-call service by Republic would include projects that are longer than 90 days but aren't quite permanent. So in the event that someone has a project that goes for longer than 90 days, there is a plan. This is a service that's already provided, so this is just bringing the code into alignment with what's happening and kind of acknowledges that sort of medium need. We have gone over this proposed code with the Meridian Police Department Code Enforcement Division, since they're the ones that are often contacting the temporary haulers. We've talked to finance, the utility billing services, since they do the billing, and we bundle our franchise service billing with our utility billing, so that there is some impact there, but they're on board with the change. This has been presented to the Solid Waste Advisory Commission at their June meeting. Sayard Schultz, our solid waste coordinator, has been in touch with Republic Services throughout this process, and since the legislation has gone into effect, so they are aware and on board. And she's also been in touch with other Treasure Valley cities and agencies about what they're doing. And the big one is Boise, and their code is very similar to ours. They're using a 90-day limit for their temporary projects. And the only difference really is that Boise is going to regulate the size of containers for temporary projects, and we're not proposing that. If and when you're ready, of course, I'll take any questions, but the next steps would be that I would prepare an ordinance for your adoption, incorporating these changes. The Meridian Utility Billing Services would sunset the existing temporary project accounts that they are currently administering with Republic Services. So we would still administer on-call and regular services that we're already doing pursuant to our franchise agreement, but this is one little piece that would go away from our administration and be transferred to Republic. So everything is lined up for that to happen. We are going to sunset the temporary accounts that we are currently administering and just let those kind of run out. And when those are done, then Republic would take the baton. So at that point, Republic Services would administer its own temporary project accounts, and they would be in just the general marketplace with the other temporary haulers for temporary projects. So they would be one choice among any others. That is the end. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you, Mrs. King. Council questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Will Roberts.
Mr. Mayor, Emily, thank you so much. My first question was I've got a friend that's kind of in this process right now of a project of like gutting their home after a loved one passed away. And how do you determine what's normal? So you put your normal trash in the trash bin, and I mean, that just seems really complicated to try to figure out as you're cleaning out a house, what should go where.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Little Roberts, good question. I'm not sure that it's necessary in that instance to be super strict. I think certainly an event like that, or like a remodel or any kind of project that is truly temporary, I think there probably are in that instance going to be some things that might otherwise go in the toter bin. But the purpose of this distinction is that it's not a substitute for regular pickup service. So it's not so much the commingling that we're worried about as the supplanting the regular service with just a temporary hauler. So it's certainly no one's going to be digging through and checking to make sure your eggshells didn't go in the project garbage or something like that. It's really just a matter of distinguishing the regular weekly pickup and the household waste versus project waste.
Great, thank you.
Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
Thanks, Emily. My questions are actually more around just communication and kind of an outreach plan for the MUBS customers that would be transitioning back over to Republic. Have there been discussions with utility billing and internally and with Republic about how we would, if we were to move this forward, how we would kind of publicize this and communicate about it?
Mhm. Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Strader, yes, there's a plan. We have about 350 temporary accounts. There are 19 that are older than 90 days. So it's a relatively small percentage of our temporary account holders that would really be, that might really even notice a change or would need to be shifted over. So I guess I can't speak to exactly how those people will be contacted, but we're aware that they're there. And so whatever happens next, we would need to reach out to those folks and let them know that they're kind of in the, they need on-call service. That really, it will change to a degree how we administer those, but it might really just be on paper. So they might notice very little impact as well. And then the other accounts, they will just sunset and use Republic for this need. And then when they graduate, then it's kind of the open market. Everyone's doing the same thing then.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
I'm a little bit curious, what was the thinking about why we would like all kind of temporary projects transitioned over to Republic, as opposed to saying, if you'd like a temporary project through our franchisee, you could still contact us at utility billing and we will still organize that. But under the law, certainly you're welcome now, right, to contract with another provider. I guess I'm kind of curious about why the decision was made internally that we did not want to administer these accounts going forward.
Mhm. Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Strader, the thinking is that Republic in this context is one of many other options. So where Republic is acting outside of its franchise agreement, that's not something that we do. That's something that they do. So thinking really is that we administer what is covered by our franchise agreement and not what is not. So it takes this particular service out of our franchise agreement and makes it kind of the market controls that instead of our franchise agreement controls that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
But I guess I'm curious from a legal perspective, is there any issue with kind of administering billing on behalf of a franchisee as kind of a provider for ease of use? The reason I'm asking is I have like these add-on subscriptions that Republic bills quarterly, right? And I find it very cumbersome that we can't just be like a one-stop shop for billing everything and that we need to divide it up this way, because just from a customer perspective, right? I don't know that they care that much about who's doing it, but it's much easier for them to go to one place as opposed to like having separate phone calls and all that. Is there a legal reason that we can't do that? Or is that just kind of because we wanted to keep it clean. I just want to understand, like, legally, is there a legal basis why we wouldn't administer still temporary dumpsters and stuff as a service to people when we have a franchisee like?
Um, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Strader, I believe the answer for us lies in accounting. And so that's certainly not my forte, but we obviously are two separate entities. And so we do the accounting for the city and Republic does the accounting for Republic. There is, Carrie, I believe, would have to speak to our, or someone in finance would have to speak to the percentage that I can't remember if it's take or keep or bill for the services that we provide Republic. So our administrative cost fluctuates or depends on what the services that we provide to Republic on behalf of our customers, which is the bundling of our utilities and garbage. So I think I would have to phone a friend to talk more about the specifics of exactly how that percentage is allocated and billed with regard to our services that we provide on behalf of Republic. So legally, perhaps maybe a little bit because we can't provide services for Republic when it's serving only Republic. We can provide services that are serving the city and our customers, which is what we do within the franchise agreement. But anything beyond that really is up to Republic.
Your friends have arrived.
Oh, yay. Oh, Carrie.
Sorry to interject, I was paying attention in my office. The question regarding the why goes back to the franchise agreement. With our services being held to the property, we wanted to focus on the charges that were required. If it's an optional service, we were looking at keeping it separate because if they don't pay the bill on a required service, we can shut the services off, meaning the water, the sewer, the trash. Where it's an optional service, if they don't pay the bill, trying to keep that debt tied to the property was an issue in my mindset. That was yours as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Schrader.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate that. I think this for me is maybe a takeaway. Maybe we could chat about it offline, but this is kind of the main question that I have is just around convenience for people and the trade-offs of having the city kind of administer things holistically on behalf of Republic as opposed to contracting out for individual services all the time. I just think from a customer experience standpoint, I think that can just be very cumbersome, but I understand more your rationale now, so that's very helpful. I'll follow up with you after this meeting.
We're putting it in line with, like you said, the subscriptions, the glass, and the extra things like that. the
Right.
Grass. glass.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavan.
did have maybe just one question for Emily, and it's really breaks down to the enforcement side. Does this follow like our traditional process of it's complaint driven? Are there people that are monitoring dates and are doing assessments? Is there a requirement for a vendor to give us a date that they start and then let us know when they've ceased? How do we handle, how are we going to manage enforcement?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Cavanagh, it will follow our format of being complaint driven. So it's really a hybrid of complaint driven, and if a code enforcement officer drives by and it's, it's there for New Year's and it's there for the 4th of July, then maybe that would, we might start noticing and following up. So, but other than that, a complaint really is what it would take. There are options, like registries and licenses and permits and things like that, but those are pretty administratively intense. So and really not a need. We're not seeing an overwhelming issue with these. People really want to do their project and then have it leave.
Mr. Mayor, maybe a quick follow-up.
Councilman Cavan.
Emily, can you walk me through maybe some of the mechanics of that where it's going to be complaint driven? So I get one of these at my house, I'm doing a remodeling project, and 3 months goes by and I'm slow, and my neighbor calls code enforcement and say, this is going on at the Cavanaugh's house.
Mhm.
Code enforcement make contact with me and they say you've got 90 days and I have to prove that I've not been there 90 days. Is it my word against my neighbor's word? I want to make sure, because I think some of this, our citizens are going to inquire about this, right? And so I want to make sure that we've kind of flushed out the SOP about how we'll make sure that if it is 90 days, it is 90 days and not 90 days after the first complaint is initiated or something like that.
Mhm. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Cavanagh, each case is probably a little bit different with regard to proof. So I think some neighbors might say, oh, that's new. Take a picture the first day. It's date stamped and, you know, they can do an affidavit and they're an excellent witness and they know exactly the first date and the end date. Or we can ask for records from the temporary hauler, or there are different scenarios where we can figure out how long it's been there without, you know, starting on day zero. I think there probably is the case where that's the only way to just say, well, okay, we know it's been here longer than 90 days because I last spoke with you. You know, I spoke with you every month for the last 3 months. So that does happen depending on just witnesses and really what's the evidence that's available to the code enforcement officer in their investigation. It can be tricky. So we are going to run into that as we do now with regard to how long has that been there, or how long has this been going on, or how long has this been a problem?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
And Emily, I know that we're not taking an action tonight. That's, I think, is going to be my feedback, is that greater clarity, so it's not as squishy, because again, certainly if you're the person who has it and you think you haven't had it 90 days, you want it for your full 90 days if that's what you need. Likewise, if you're a neighbor and you feel like this has been a visual obstruction to your quality of life, that 90 days may feel like we're way past that. And so some consistent way for us to look at all of these the same way, I think is important when it comes to this. So I know what we're trying to accomplish. You know, some of this is not by our own doing. This is as it's adhering to what the state, but I do think it is an opportunity for us to kind of level up how we would handle this to provide clear, consistent direction to both those that are using them for their own use and those who feel like they wish me as their neighbor wouldn't be using these, hypothetically.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Neary.
maybe to add on top of that, though, is, again, ultimately, if we get to the point where they're going to want to issue a citation from code enforcement, we're going to have to prove it criminally, which means they're going to have more than just a perception that it's been there long enough. I mean, they're going to, so whether, like Emily said, we went, okay, we've been here a number of times, it doesn't appear to be moving. Okay, the first day I was here was this day, that's day one, here you go. You got 90 days from now, not 90 days from when somebody called us 3 months ago and we didn't come out. So, I mean, they're going to have to be pretty specific to prove to a court or a jury that this is really a violation. So they're going to have to be more specific.
It can, maybe just to, and if I'm wrong, I look at what's our current practice now.
Mr. Mayor, if we see an illegal temporary hauler, code enforcement does their best to contact them immediately.
Right. Well, let's go to not illegal. Let's see, we've got a Republic legal thing put in someone's driveway. Is there a 90-day limit currently?
No.
Is there a code enforcement action that can be taken legally?
No.
So the code enforcement action currently is not about whether people like it or not. It's whether or not it's there by our provider or not. So I think that maybe is a distinction to are we really solving a neighbor's issue, or are we solving Republic's issue under the law or under our ordinance because we don't want to have people have these in there? That might help at least determine whether or not this is the right approach or not.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, where I'm coming from is we are now creating a timeline. They're allowed to exist. And right now, if a neighbor were to call, they say these are legal, they're allowed, right? This passes, they say they're legal, allowed for 90 days. And so at the 91st day, I call the city, say, hey, this thing has been out here for 91 days. It needs to be gone. City code enforcement goes out and we don't have any way to prove that it's 91 days. And so now instead of 90, it's now maybe 120 or 180 because code enforcement has to be able to provide their findings before a citation. And so that's the part I'm just trying to overcome, is that how we're going to be consistent in the enforcement over what is something that is somewhat subjective in terms of how we're going to enforce it.
Mr. Mayor, oh, excuse me.
If you have a response, Emily, go ahead and give a response to,
I'll defer.
okay, Councilman Overton.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Emily, great job.
Thank you.
I'm completely reminded of the fact that on a small scale, code enforcement deals with this every week on vehicles that have been parked in front of a house for over 72 hours. And people call in and tell us they've been parked there too long, and when we get there, we start the clock then. It's the same type of enforcement that we will have with these. It's unfortunate that the 90 days could be doubled to do an investigation. But I will tell you that in the case of illegal dumpsters, you may find that the people calling them in may not be code enforcement as much as our franchisee, who is helping us enforce if there's issues going on in a community. One follow-up, Mr. Mayor. On the issue of the holistic approach of trying to handle billing for things outside of our franchise agreement, I think I'd be concerned on the other side, which is if we started handling the billing for things outside of our franchise agreement, could we not also then get hit up by the other companies saying, well, if you're going to do that billing, you should do it for us too? I'd be a little concerned that we could get tapped for that business as well. And now we're doing a lot of billing for a lot of things that we have no control over, no enforcement on, adding to our workload of our staff. I think the cleanest way is the way it's been brought forward, where only if it's under our franchise agreement do we handle the billing currently.
Just to maybe go circle back to my comment, I think it's just important for council to, because I'm going back, someone wants to have one of these in their driveway for 180 days from Republic right now under this ordinance. Is that allowed?
Mr. Mayor, yes.
So it's not about how long it's allowed in the driveway. It's about who has it from another source in the driveway. So I think just from again, going back to that, what is the council's understanding and intention of these changes as it pertains to enforcement of them or not?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of a hard time because we have a health and safety rationale that's specific to other providers that limits to 90 days, but we don't have a limitation under our code with Republic. Like I'm struggling a little bit with that, if that's the case.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Strader, that's not correct. The Republic would be a temporary hauler among any others that are out there. So they are governed by these same provisions, and they're under the exception. They're not operating under a franchise agreement at all in that instance. And that just for temporary projects.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
So that's important. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page. So currently, there's no time limit right now, from my understanding, on, let's just say, getting a dumpster temporarily in front of someone's home currently, right? There's no time limit for them to do so.
Mayor, Councilwoman, that's correct.
And so then under these changes, what would happen is Republic would be considered one of multiple providers then and would be subject to the 90-day limitation as well?
Correct.
Okay, then I'm starting to feel like we're more on the same page.
Is that accurate though, if they are? I thought the restriction didn't pertain, it was only for people using them outside of the way the franchise. So I guess that would be a question mark. Is there no longer a franchise component to the dumpsters? Are they all gone or only for certain types of uses?
Mr. Mayor, so in the first 90 days, Republic is a temporary hauler. They're one of many. There is a scenario, let's say the project is a 100-day project. So in the next 10 days, Republic would either come and get that container and bring a new one, or they would change the billing, and that would be an on-call service. So it would no longer be a temporary project. It would become an on-call, it would enter that medium range, which on day 91, it is the franchise agreement. So if Republic is your chosen hauler, I guess you're still dealing with the same company who's handling that dumpster and that project, but it's a different account. It's no longer a temporary project. It's an on-call account.
Mayor?
Where's Mud, Councilwoman?
Yeah,
Schrader?
I have to think, I'm gonna have to think about this for a bit, I think, just initial reaction is just, I understand the distinction, but the practical reality is that we're creating a limitation, a timeline limitation on other temporary haulers that would not apply, it sounds like, to Republic to the extent that it is no longer temporary. I need to wrestle with this a little bit because I guess you feel like there's a distinction, but I'm not sure I'm really seeing it, I think is the issue.
Also, I'll actually say, I think that's the intention. The intention is that you can contract for 90 days with someone other than Republic. But if you're going to be more than 90 days, it should be with Republic at a minimum. But you can do the 90 days with them as well. That is the intention of this, is so that people don't use a permanent hauler for longer, or another hauler that's not Republic for a longer term, a longer period of term, because now we are getting outside of, what they should be entitled to under the franchise.
Mr. Mayor, like that's what's dictated by state code now, correct? Like we are just adhering to the actions of the legislature when it comes to these dates. So even if we had a differing of philosophy, we have to adhere to the state code, correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Cavanagh, yes, we do need to define temporary projects.
Okay.
If we want to regulate, the alternative is to do nothing, and then it is everyone does whatever they want for 90 days without restriction and with no regulation, which I would not recommend. I think that this helps literally everyone, because then we're all working together, including, I think, the temporary haulers, because then they're on the map, everyone's legitimate, everyone knows who everyone is. But yes, the state code does allow for temporary projects, however that's defined by a city, that can be anyone, not just the franchisee.
And not everyone is adhering to a 90-day in this valley. Some are going much lower than that in some other places, but I think this is standard for what Republic's doing with their other franchisees in the valley. That's my understanding, but
Mine as well.
so council, this is current state law. So we are in a place where time to get something on the books does matter is, in that context. I don't know if you're going to want to think and have Ms. Kane come back for more discussion. Ms. Kane, if you think that there's more to look at based upon this conversation for clarity, I want to make sure we're moving forward expeditiously, appropriately.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cowner.
I know we don't have a council member who's here, but I'm satisfied. I still think there's some mechanics of how we're going to handle enforcement needs to be better flushed out, but the time being of the essence, is it a public hearing for feedback and action next week? Or are we waiting until essentially August 12th? I think it'd be the next time that we could add this on our agenda. Look for any feedback from council and give some direction to Ms.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
I think we could go ahead with our public hearing. For me, it's just like a handful of maybe follow-up questions. But if I saw something that raised some red flags for me, I would let you know. Guess that's the feedback I have at this point.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
I'm definitely ready for a public hearing next week. That'd be great.
Work for you?
I will not be here next week, but Mr. Neri will.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next item up is item 5, which is Mayor and City Council Compensation Committee recommendation. I see, Mr. Mayor, your name is here. You also got some other folks here join you.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I told them I would kick this off initially just for the record and for the public's perspective. So just so that public's reminded, every 2 years, as part of our normal election cycle, we have a committee that is made up of citizens from various walks in the city. We've used a number of the people on this committee have been on a number of committees over the years to try to maintain some continuity. So we have 6 members on the committee this current cycle. 4 of them are here today to discuss their discussion, what they considered, the information they evaluated and considered, and then a recommendation that they want to bring forward to you. But the 6 members are Steve Corey, Brad Hoagland, David Ballard, Jessica Perot, Clint Shiflett, and Joe Greer. They're all members of various commissions of the city and have been involved in the city in other capacities as well. Anyway, they have 4 of them are here, or yeah, 4 of them are here tonight. 3 are to present what their recommendations are, and I told them I'd just start that off, and then I think Mr. Corey is going to start the discussion.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I am here to kind of kick this off. A lot of this material is in the package that you received, so we'll just talk about some of the key points on it. First, just to kind of review the committee's discussion. It was very important to every member of the committee that we had, shall we say, maintain a competitive compensation process. We recognize how much time you're being asked to commit when you go ahead and do this work. And people who in the future are going to be performing these activities will go ahead and have an extensive amount of time. And we want to make sure that we're getting the best and brightest from our community to go ahead and participate in this venue. We don't want to get to a situation somewhere along the line where they have to go ahead and consider, I've got the same type of commitment from these 2 deals, but this non-city activity will give me a little bit more money, and that's better for my family and everything else. So I'm going to dedicate my time to something that's not part of city governance. Anyway, that's why we were kind of looking towards something that's competitive. The committee evaluated and discussed an ongoing annual increased methodology that'll be discussed later. The committee reviewed the recommendations from the last term in 2023. The committee in 2023 recommended increases for both the mayor and city council, and I'm just bringing forth the history here. City council declined the increase back then, and the proposed increases for the mayor's position in 24 and then in 25 were approved. So that puts us in a situation where the last increase for the council was in 2023. And we actually went back and looked at the history for compensation back to 2000 and considered how it's happened in the last 20 years. One thing that was of concern to us was where we maybe go through increases that were 1 to 3% or something like that. But all of a sudden we end up being way behind the market. And we've had to have sometimes with 5, 8, 10, 11% increases. And we felt like that there was a need going forward to try to level that out so that the increases weren't scattershot. And we did look at the prevailing rates at other similar, other cities within Idaho to see where we fell. This is a quick slide for the mayor's position on some of the corresponding cities. You note that we're second largest city and we've got a commensurate pay. What's not in here is to identify that Boise will be jumping up in January 1st to 171,000. So talking about particulars with the committee's recommendation in regards to the mayor, we felt like it was, well, there was some discussion about how maybe the target might best be reaching about $150,000 in a couple of years. We felt like the jump was a little too high on that. So what we're recommending is a $3,500 raise next year and then again the following year. So it would jump from 139,000 that it currently is to 142,887. And then it would jump in 2027 to 146,387. We recognize that this is just our discussion on this. This is going to be turned over to you, but we felt like beyond this, it would actually be good to go ahead and implement an annual change that was similar to the kind of change in salary that employees are getting, and then allow the compensation committee to move over to looking at if there's any market rate adjustment or something like that needed to happen. More on that later in the presentation. I think it's important to say we kind of felt like things were right about this, that it was similar to universities and such where department chairs and coaches and whatever may get paid more than the head of the organization, but it was important to recognize that the mayor is more or less a CEO of the operation, so they should be getting something close to those pays, and those were kind of the things that drove us to get to these recommendations. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to former Councilwoman Jessica Perot to go ahead and take over with the portion for City Council.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to serve on this committee. As a former council member, I'm really privileged to do that and excited to make our recommendation for city council compensation for the next couple of years. Bill just handed you all the specifics on the compensation increases for the last 25 years. I had asked the committee to review these. I just wanted to look for patterns. And what we found was that the considerations that were made for city council compensation, mayoral compensation, and staff compensation was all being decided in very different ways, very different philosophies. And so, as Steve mentioned, we would like to see a little more consistency in how that's done. And Brad will go into more detail, Mr. Hoagland will go into more detail on that after I'm finished. What I'd like to point out to you on this is that, as you will see, from 2000 to 2025, there were several instances in which the city council chose not to take compensation, and then there would be a year in which the compensation would increase by a third. That happened twice, and in a few other years, it was around 11, 12%. And so just looking at, we looked at that as the overall picture, and then we focused a little bit more on the last 5 years and noticed that the percentages that were taken in 22 and 23 were at 7.5%. And we felt like that was reasonable to consider that again, given that there was not any compensation taken in 24 and 25. That would actually put the recommendation that we are making at about 3.25% over the last 4 years, or excuse me, over the last 2 years, and then the same for the next 2 years. So that brings me to our slide. Am I running this? Okay. Let me see, how do I go to the last slide? I should.
The arrows on the keyboard are little bit.
Oops,
On the keyboard, down.
I'm not seeing it. Oh, it's covered up by a word.
I think there's a.
Is it down here? Thank you. This is the first time I've had to use the presentation screen. So just very quickly, this is what is the current compensation for our area and also some other cities in the state. And just to make note that in 2026, the Boise City Council will be up to a little over 31,000 for their compensation. So they'll be increasing the mayor's compensation and city council's compensation next year. And so now we'll look at the bullet points on this slide. As I stated, we wanted to look in detail at the data, and we did. And we said that the increases have been inconsistent, and so we would like to change that process. The committee discussed where we would like to land at the end of 2027 and what the future compensation committee will have to decide. What will the decision that will be made this year, how is that going to affect the decisions of the future committees, depending on if council decides to take our recommendation or decides to take a portion of what we recommend. So we are recommending an increase of to council compensation by $1,500 for 2026 and $1,500 for 2027. There was unanimous agreement in the amongst the members of the committee that we'd like to get to $20,000 in compensation by 2027. And so then, as Steve also mentioned, we would like to consider implementing an annual increase for 2028 and beyond that's equal to the same percentage increase for general employees in the subsequent budget years. So we have a proposal for a change to the mayor's compensation, a proposal for a change to city council compensation, and then a proposal for a change to how the compensation conversation will go 2028 and in the future. The rest of what we will be addressing will be done by Mr. Hoagland. Oh, before I leave, do you have any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
For the record, Brad Hoagland. Glad to be here and talk about this fun subject. And I know it's something that everyone always wrestles with every 2 years, and we're coming about. And that's why I'm going to talk about how do we kind of go beyond that. And whatever you guys decide for, whatever the council decides, you guys, okay. It's a work session. We're always more informal, right? Whatever you decide, I hope you decide that there's increases. We want to make sure that this is something that people look at and say, I can do that above and beyond my current work. And I look at it as spousal appreciation pay is one way to look at it, because they're the ones that bear the burden of you being gone and in meetings, and you even may be at home and you may be going through a packet that's going to take an hour or two, like Destination Downtown, just as an example. Throw that out there. Those are the types of things that, that compensation goes to. Is there something for them, and for the family, because you are giving up a lot of time. One of the things, like in the council comparison that I found back in 2008 when I first served, I was thinking, wow, Eagle and Meridian, Eagle council members get paid the same as Meridian council members. Okay, that's fine. Big deal. Then I found out that Eagle has 2 meetings a week and we had 4. 2 meetings a month and we had 4 meetings a month. That's what you don't see on that chart. It was the number of meetings. For example, Nampa, very similar in population. They're required to meet the 1st and 3rd Mondays of each month. I know you're here every Tuesday night, except for those 5th Tuesdays, which, ACHD like to meet. Oh, the school board wants to meet. Well, we have these different things that come about. So there's a lot of time that goes into this. And as Councilwoman Perot, I know, and I, and you all feel the same, you don't do it for the money. It's not about the money. That's not why you ran. You want to serve your community and make it better. So I hope you move forward with these requests. And as Councilwoman Perot, former Councilwoman Perot pointed out, at a minimum for council, we were looking at $500. We really think that needs to keep pace, but we think it's justified to go to 1,500 for the next 2 years. Then for budget year 2028, to kind of move off this yes, no, and then big increases several years later, and it's just this back and forth, is starting for that, go at the same percentage that you're giving general employees. So that would increase, if it's 2% for general employees, cost of living increase, it's going to be 2% for council and mayor. So that would move forward. Every 2 years, though, we'd still have this committee that would then look at it as from a market survey, because there might be changes in the market. And this is what HR does. Debbie was very helpful in that, suggesting some things that you take a look and make the comparisons. Are these jobs still similar? So that's what this committee would do. The salary portion would be kind of almost on autopilot to a degree, but if there's a need for market adjustment, then we can go in and make that recommendation, come back to the mayor and council and say, hey, this is what we recommend because there have been changes in the market. So that would be for 2028. And then if the market adjustments needed, adjust the base salaries to what is fitting. So whatever the outcome is on the salaries, this is separate from that, but just kind of a way to move forward. Napa and Coeur d'Alene already do this, so it's not unusual. You're not breaking new ground here, but that's how they look at compensation moving forward. So anyway, I think, I just one breakdown for that $1,500 for the year for council. That breaks out to just over $54 per pay period, 26 pay periods. That doesn't include the taxes that come off and everything. So yeah, you can buy a nice lunch after that increase. So just a couple of thoughts on that. If you have really hard questions and want to get into percentages and whatnot, David Ballard is here. This is his 4th compensation committee meeting, so he's well versed in it and can answer any of the really hard questions. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Brad. Council, any questions for Brad, Jessica, David, Bill? It looks like Steve left.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, Mr. Corey had a birthday dinner to head out to, so unfortunately, his apologies, but yeah, kind of important for him. So.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
comments and more than questions. First off, a huge thank you to all the members of the committee. I mean, what an esteemed group to meet and discuss this with all the city history behind it. I'll admit right now that 2 years ago, I voted against that increase. But then again, I was kind of a new, excited member of the city council, and I certainly wasn't here for the pay. 2 years later, I think my wife would want to have a say-so in this matter. And she would disagree with me. It does take a lot more time than I initially believed when I got on city council to do the job right. And seeing how inconsistent we've been since the year 2000 on compensating our positions, I appreciate what you've done. And what we decide on as what that looks like, I would definitely be in favor of increasing the compensation for city council. But I have to tell you, it's a struggle to vote on your own pay increase. And I really wish that process was not in our hands. To get through this one this time and to put it onto autopilot in the future definitely seems like it would be the smartest move in the future as well, to take that off our shoulders every 2 years. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for the process you went through, the history you dug up, and what brought us to today. And the last 2 years, we've had no increase. And I think we need to, out of respect for the position and the workload, which is certainly not getting to be less, accept your sage advice. And I would be willing to move forward with an increase that was agreed upon by council.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
maybe I'll start with, I guess, the bill. Bill, thanks for putting together this committee. This is a who's who of people that it'd be really hard to not accept the recommendation they bring. These are people that really care about our community, have served our community. So I also think bring a variety of perspectives. I have two questions, either for you, Mr. Nair, or for the committee. Question one, I think 2 years ago, Councilmember Strader proposed an idea for council members, I guess a mechanic to forego their salary. Was that discussed by the committee? Has there been any suggestions or recommendations on an action that the council could take to say, hey, here's the salary, but we don't want it, and it can go to wherever? And then my second question is, and maybe either for the panel or Mr. Nair, if you want to give a summary, certainly the council's been discussing at great length the past couple of months a public safety levy. Did that play into any of the conversations with the committee about how the levy and at the same time that the mayor and city council may be taking up pay increases?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll take the first stab at it, and certainly if the committee members want to chime in. On the first question, we did not discuss that at the committee level. I did discuss it with the finance department, and is there a way to do that? And without doing a whole lot of research, their answer generally was no, that they couldn't do that because, again, wages are so regulated as to how those are done, and they didn't have a comfort level of diverting wages. Their feeling is, and I think the law does require, they have to pay them. Where the individual that receives them diverts them to wherever they want to, they can do that. But the city doesn't have the power to do that. So they, again, without us doing a whole lot more work, but that was really their initial blushes. We really don't have the ability to divert wages of anybody pre-tax. All of it has to get taxed, all of it has to be reported, and then from that point forward, they can send it anywhere they want. On the second question, yes, there was some discussion about the different things that are going on, and the levy was certainly a conversation point. And I will add a point that I think the committee brought up a lot, so I don't think I'm speaking out of school, but the committee talked about a lot. Their whole conversation, and they sort of intimated in that in their discussion today, was not about any of you. It wasn't about any of you in the positions. It wasn't about any individuals at all. It was about the job and the expectation, both as members of the public, that all of them are, and what the public is expecting, the type of pool of talent they're wanting and the people to attract to want to do these jobs. And that was really the whole focus of where the discussion on value and what the compensation should be for both the council and the mayor position. So it was definitely not about individuals, but more about that, and understanding that there are other things going on, like the levy conversation and like other things that are needs of the city. But they felt as a group, and again, certainly they have a different perspective, but as a group, they felt like this was important too. I mean, it may be not more important, but at least as equally important to them as members of the public, that these positions do have a fair and adequate compensation, that they are valued, and they should have compensation adequate to reflect the amount of work that's expected from the public. So that was kind of where it was. So it wasn't that it wasn't discussed, Councilman Cavanagh, but it really was sort of like, yeah, we get that, but we also think this is important.
I think you're going to get a second answer on this question.
Perfect.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Council President Kavner. Yes, we discussed sort of the budgetary and political, if you will, environment at length, and how council would be making this decision, the types of concerns that you would have. And we came to ultimately two conclusions in that. The first was, as Bill mentioned, there's kind of always going to be stuff popping up in the budget. I mean, Brad's done how many budgets now? I've done a few, and it seems like there's going to be a conversation about that every single time this decision is before you. There's going to be something. Not that we are minimizing those concerns in any way. We just realize there's always an opportunity to not take this increase for a reason like the levy, or a political reason or financial reason. The second is that, again, we felt like the many times that council opted not to take an increase, it just put them farther and farther behind. And that puts the burden of taking a larger increase on future council or a future decision that's made, and then we're not talking about a 7%, we're talking about a 12%. And you can see that that was done over the history. So any questions for me?
Mr. Mayor?
Uh, Jessica, I think there will be a question for you. Councilwoman Schrader.
Thank you. I'm intrigued by this idea of trying to tie it to some kind of cost of living adjustment or general employees, just because I can kind of see what you're saying. I feel like it sort of sets up a trap a little bit for people where, like, if they don't take anything, and it could be that they feel very strongly that that's personally their conviction, right? And I totally get that, but then it kind of does set up a future council then that might feel differently to have to make these huge adjustments. Is that part of the thinking? Is it like, because you looked at the history and you're saying, okay, you know what, it would have been better if people would have just stayed at a steady state of like 2 to 3%, as opposed to like 0% for 5 years, then it's 33%. You're trying to address the lumpiness and kind of smooth that out. Is that part of the thinking?
Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilwoman Strader. Yes, absolutely. That was part of the thinking. And we did have the conversation that had that approach been taken for the last 25 years, this would have been a very different conversation. And so we had many discussions regarding future council members, those that will be elected in the future, and what this decision-making process is like for them. And as Mr. Neri described, the opportunities that future council members have to campaign for this office and what's entailed with that and the responsibility. In addition, what we noticed was that many of times that the decision was made to not take the compensation, it was because the council members had concern for their staff and whether their staff was receiving increase. And that's been something that I have appreciated about this council, is that they've always wanted to be sensitive to whether staff was receiving that increase. And sometimes, oftentimes, especially during the recession and during COVID, council sought not to take those increases, to be sensitive to what was happening with the staff. We feel like if we set it up such that the council then is receiving a similar increase through market adjustments, then that conversation can kind of be taken off the table.
Thanks for explaining that.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
I have a little bit of a reaction so far, kind of like Councilman Overton. On the one hand, I do tend to agree. I think taking an increase is something we should take a hard look at. I am struggling really hard with the timing of going to the voters with our levy at the same time that we're considering this. I just think that's really hard. And I think that part of that's political reality and part of that's just sensitivity. So I don't know. It's something I think we're going to have to all wrestle with quite a bit. I do have a reaction to the mayor's salary. I feel like I see a compression issue between senior leaders and the mayor. And I know it's not unusual to have situations where you do have a CEO that's making a little bit less than other leaders. Like, that does happen. I thought those were good examples. But I'm a little bit just, I do feel like it would be wise for us to try to get the mayor's salary up to 150,000 at some point soon. Just because I feel like we're getting so far out of whack relative to Boise. And I think to me, it is a compression issue, and it's an incentive issue. And it's also just ensuring that that's an office that, you know, continues to attract the highest talent is really important to me, not just as a council member, but as a citizen. And I've seen up close now for more than one and a half, almost 1.5 terms, that it's a critical position. I think it needs to be compensated that way. So I guess I have a little more openness to increasing the mayor's salary at this point. Definitely gives us a lot to chew on. So I think this was helpful.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Whitlock.
I would just chime in with my appreciation. Thank you.
Um, I have some thoughts and comments, some of it related to phase one, some of it related to phase two. But I guess, Bill, what's the process that we need to have accomplished by when, or the council moving forward?
So, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, so to comply with state code, we have to have this approved 75 days before the election. And I didn't get the count. It's basically towards the end of August. So if we want to wait till August 12th for a public hearing, that's fine. I just need some clarity of what you'd like to see. The recommendations that they've made for the mayor. Do you want the recommendation for the council? Again, you can always change it, but if you want at least that to be the draft for a conversation, I can prepare an ordinance for the 12th of August for that. If you want me to include also the subsequent years for the increase based on the general employee compensation, however you'd like to fashion, I can do basically all that's been proposed to you. You can then, cut back some of it if you wish to pass. We don't obviously have to pass the one you do. We just would not tend to want to increase something that you've, had a public hearing on.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Cavanagh.
Mr. Mayor, I want to make sure I'm hearing that right. We could publish a memo that would show the numbers that are recommended by the committee. But to Councilmember Strader's question, if the council was supportive of elevating that number for the mayor's salary to 150, we wouldn't be able to do that because kind of like our budget, we published a number lower than maybe what we would potentially consider.
You could. So the only question from finance was they wanted the highest number you would propose so they can make sure to put it in your budget that's going to come back to you on the 29th for the amount of money we're anticipating spending in the next fiscal year. So that's the only number they cared about.
Okay.
I was saying from a public hearing standpoint in the ordinance, we can publish any number you wish. You can always change it, and you can change it up or down. There's not a prohibition on
I
the
want to make sure I
ordinance.
was hearing on.
Yes.
Maybe just some feedback on what was suggested from my perspective, at least on, as it pertains to the mayor's compensation component. I did the math, it's roughly 2.39, a little bit, pretty close to what the cost of living is for this current year. And when Bill came and asked me, or actually, I don't know if you came and asked me, I think I volunteered the information. I said I felt like the position was well compensated. That, looking at the cost of living would be appreciated if that's what they came forward with. Wasn't expecting it, but that's really where I felt like the job is. The pay's been elevated quite a bit over the last half dozen years. So that to me, it feels in line with still moving forward and not stagnating the position. But if the council does wish to go to something that's yearly and then looking at a market adjustment, where I would suggest, Councilwoman Strader, your stuff would come into place would be in 2 years. I think every 4 years is when you should look at a market adjustment with the committee, not every 2 years. Because really you should not, we do 3 years for all the other employee positions. I don't think that you really are going to see market conditions change every 2. And if you tie it to when the mayor's position is up, that way you are putting in what you want to attract at that point in time. That's the time to make those type of changes would make sense. So, and I say this not in light of our, I know Todd is going to say that this is all very immaterial to the larger scope of the budget and their cost. But I think that would be the right time if we think that if there's a market concern 2 years from now, when that position would actually be considered by the community for election, is when that conversation I think would be more appropriate to be had. I already agreed to the job with what the current rate was with all the understandings. And you should make changes to your compensation as well, just for the record. I've said it, I don't vote unless there's a tie, but I do think it's important to stay moving it appropriately forward.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
I recall from, I think our conversation last week, we're basically down a council member, I think, every week through the month of August, either we got somebody who's unavailable each Tuesday, and so this is, I think, an important vote of the council, and I would just want to make sure that we take that into account too about when we would want to schedule a public hearing, and if it is important for all of the members of the council to vote on this, if for those that have less of a strong feeling or more of a strong feeling about that, before we pick an arbitrary date, I just, sitting in the back of my head, the mechanics we went through last week about a special meeting around the levy, I look at this as also, I think, an important vote of the council to make. I just want to make sure that we're inclusive of everybody's schedule on it as well.
Well, it sounds like if that's the case, you only have one date to put on if you want everyone to be there, be between now and the 14th.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
Bill, it would need to happen, you said in August?
No later than.
No later.
So we have one meeting scheduled in August currently. You have one meeting on the 29th where everyone is planning to participate. If you're accurate, there's no other meeting between now and that date where everyone would be present. That's, again, I wasn't aware that people were going to be gone in August, but
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
we may have had a schedule change. There's a good possibility, and I could even make it happen, that I could be here next Tuesday.
Mr. Mayor, I could remote in.
So then, Mr. Mayor,
That's what-
if that works for everybody for next Tuesday, then let's, Mr. Mayor, maybe have the city attorney put together a memo taking into the recommendations for mayor and council compensation as presented for a public hearing and action next week during our regular city council meeting.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so just so you know, it will be a draft ordinance.
Okay,
So it'll be an ordinance with the, just as it's currently in our code, with the proposed wages or compensation for each of those positions over the next 2 years. And I'll also include then the provision about after that 2-year period of those 2 cycles, then it would go to the same as what the other ones, the annual adjustment.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I will have that on for Tuesday.
thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thanks, committee. Thank you, Mr. Neri.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all.
All right, with that, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
that has concluded our business for the work session. I move we adjourn our work session.
Second?
Motion is second adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Council will call this meeting to order. For the record, it is July 15th, 2025 at 6:01 PM. We'll begin this regular city council meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Cavanagh.
Here.
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
Councilman Overton.
Here.
Councilman Whitlock.
Here.
Councilwoman Strader. Here. Mayor Simonson.
Here. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all please rise and join us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Tonight's invocation will be delivered by Jason Billiser. If you would like to come forward, Jason, and for those that are here, if you'd like to take this as a moment of silence and reflection or join us in the community invocation. Jason, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you'll please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you tonight, God, for your servants, our mayor, our city manager, our city staff, our city council members, law enforcement, and the Meridian community. And Lord, we come to you tonight asking for your guidance, your wisdom, your keen discernment, and support as we begin this meeting. We give this meeting and time to you, and I pray that you will guide our discussion. It brings meaningful discussion and stronger bonds for our community. Help us, Lord, to trust you more. And with an impartation of your godly wisdom and discernment, I pray that they will quickly be able to solve our city's problems and make good policies. Lord, please bring a new level of peace and clarity to everyone involved in this meeting. Grant them excellence in their governance. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Jason, thank you, and thank you for your service to the Boise Rescue Mission. It's greatly appreciated for what you do in our community. Next up is adoption of the agenda.
Here.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Changes this evening, so I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second?
Have a motion second to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is agreed to. Madam Clerk, anyone sign up under public forum?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No one has signed up.
Okay, then with that, we will move on to our action items. The first item up is a continuation from the July 8th meeting for Day Spring subdivision H 2024-0070. I'm gonna first turn to staff to see if staff has any additional comments that they would like to kick us off with.
Mr. Mayor, council, no, I don't. Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Real quick, just before we jump in, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I should have flagged this for you earlier. I want to be upfront with council. The conclusion of our meeting last week, we had a member of the public who wanted to come up and talk to me more about the application. Again, unaware of ex parte communication. I informed the citizen, hey, this is important to share with me. It's important to share with the council. His comments largely reflected about transportation concerns. I believe that citizen has sent us a letter that conveyed their feelings. I want to flag that for the record, and if council has concerns about me participating, I'm happy to recuse myself at this point. I don't feel that there's a conflict, but I want to flag that before we move forward this evening.
Council, any concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, council.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, I should add that there have been 2 letters of public testimony that were received since last Tuesday's council meeting. One was from Mark Graham and one was from Corey Thacker. I assume you've seen those in your packets, but just wanted to point that out on the record. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we did leave the public hearing open at the conclusion. So I'm going to turn to any public testimony. I don't know if anyone signed up to testify on this item. We'd like to start with anybody who didn't have an opportunity to testify at last week's. And if anyone else who already did testify is going to do so, that we ask you please limit to anything new that has not already been testified to this point in time. So Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have John Thomas Robinson that signed up.
I'm Tom Robinson. I live at 5198 West Ridgeside Court on the Seasons Park Street. And I was impressed last week with Council Lady Strader's comments. By the way, it's been a revelation to me the last 3 weeks that I've attended these meetings, the amount of time and effort that you all put into understanding these issues and the work that you do on them. I'm amazed, and the developer and all of you. But it was interesting last week when you suggested a continuance. If I had been the chairman of this committee, I'd have probably said, yeah, I think we've heard everything. Let's go ahead and take the vote. But for some reason you didn't, and maybe there was a good reason you didn't. But I was thinking about your comments last week, essentially saying, we don't have the money. The city doesn't have the money for this. And, you know, in my opinion or understanding of the duties of city planners and city attorneys and developers, et cetera, the idea is to have orderly development. And maybe our situation here is a matter of timing, because if the city doesn't have the money to put into this project, where's the money going to come from? It's going to come from taxpayers like me and homeowners like me. And until we get some kind of technique of getting the new developments to pay for their own schools and their own add-ons that are connected with that, it seems to me like we shouldn't, as I look ahead, it's going to be a big increase on homeowners like myself. And it's going to drive a lot of elderly homeowners like myself out of their homes that they've purchased to retire in and live in the rest of their lives. And it's unfortunate that we would do that. So why don't we, if we're going to let the developers simply make the decisions on this and accelerate we hire planners to make an orderly development plans for orderly development of our city, why do we need councilmen, attorneys, city planners? Let's fire all of them and let the developers make the plans. But that isn't the idea. The idea is that we should plan ahead and proceed. If you guys have spent hours and years making plans for development of this area, so why are we accelerating this when we don't have the money to match this money without loading the taxpayers who are already here? Some of us didn't raise our kids here even, and we've been paying ever since we've moved here 30 years. Why do we continue with this and not, and I'm glad that you gave us another chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
I had a question, but just, I think maybe it's helpful to discuss a little bit. So my financial concern is not around the sewer infrastructure specifically, because we have a model of kind of saving before we spend, and we have a long-term financial plan. So by 2028, the city would have that money in place from the ratepayers. That's on our enterprise fund. But my financial concern, to your point, sir, is around our operating costs that the whole city absorbs. And so schools are funded separately. That has been a frustration of mine in the past, that developers often will donate school sites. They'll do amazing things to try to help, but they can't actually pay impact fees to help build those. But that's kind of a different entity that's their issue. My concern is around our operating costs, specifically around public safety. And for example, developers will pay impact fees. That's extremely helpful. It'll help us build new buildings. It'll help us pay for expensive capital projects. But unfortunately, it doesn't help us to ramp up our hiring of personnel, paying their salaries and that sort of thing. And that was my concern around the growth. But I just wanted to articulate that a little more for you, because I didn't want you to walk away from this conversation thinking that you would be directly on the hook, or citizens, like obviously not you personally, but that citizens would be directly on the hook for the sewer infrastructure. In a roundabout way, yes, but through our rate paying model that we use on the enterprise side. So hopefully that helps a little bit just to kind of discuss. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, anybody else sign up?
Mr. Mayor, no one else has signed up.
Hey, is there anybody present who would like to come forward and offer testimony, or anybody online? If you're online, you can use the raise your hand feature. Or if you are in the room, if you'd like to come forward at this time. Seeing no one coming forward and no one raising their hand, would the applicant like to come forward to close?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Becky McKay, Engineering Solutions, business address 1029 North Rosario and Meridian. Sonia, can you pop that up? I appreciate you guys giving us an opportunity to come back before you, and you guys taking the time to seriously consider our project based on the size, based on the complexity. And I'd just like to clarify a few things. Obviously, you can see that the Dayspring project is adjacent to urban development. So it is not leapfrog development. And here's an overall area or overall vicinity map that you can see. The big thing that I wanted to stress is we sat down and we looked at this. And I guess I wanted to obviously demonstrate to the city council that this project is not getting what a free ride. We'll be paying $2.1 million in park impact fees, $207,000 in police impact fees, $514,000 in fire impact fees. So our total impact fees to the city of Meridian is $2.85 million. When you look at the meter fees, the sewer assessment, water assessment, we're paying $3.8 million just for these 441 detached and 71 attached dwellings. If we look at the ACHD impact fees and the trust fund, we're paying 1.866, 891. It's hard, these big numbers, but $8.6 million in impact fees. So our total one-time fees for this project is $9.24 million. The commercial component, based on 60,000 square feet, which is what we had in our traffic study, and I was very conservative. I mixed up the uses to low impact, high impact, but they're all neighborhood type commercial. We'll be paying between probably $818,000 to $1 million in ACHD impact fees. Then we talked to our client, the median price or the median assessed value of this property will be $650,000. So after you take out the homeowner's exemption, we'll be paying this project at build out. We'll be paying $1.89 million in taxes within all the taxing districts with the applicable levies as is. Then if we look at the sewer main improvements, that McDermott Road improvements, we'll be building 2,655 linear feet of 30-inch sewer, 30 feet deep. The projected cost, approximately $10 million. Within Meridian Public Works CIP, this is designated as K.4 with a completion date in your own capital improvement plan of September 30th, 2028. Applicant is going to pay 50% of that cost, whether it's 10 million, 7 million, whatever it ends up being, as per the cooperative development agreement. The U-stick sewer improvements, 2,855 linear feet of 10-inch sewer, 783 linear feet of 8-inch sewer, will pay 100% of that cost and install that prior to ACHD's rebuild of U-stick Road to 5 lanes, which will be completed in 2027. In addition, we'll be abandoning the Autumn Fair lift station. We'll be paying 100% of that cost for decommissioning, connecting Autumn Fair to the gravity sewer, and that is required within phase 2. This is out of your own capital improvement plan. You can see the K4 McDermott extension, 22,746,000. Now that includes the 30-inch sewer that we're going to install. In addition to that, additional 27-inch sewer that goes on south. This is the K4 line right here. This is right out of your CIP. This is out of your CIP. It shows you guys have budgeted $2,088,000 to abandon the Autumn Fair lift station and connect it to gravity sewer. It shows the McDermott extension program at $22,745,000. We talk about this area. Is this a priority area? That was one of the discussions we had last week. The public investments in this McDermott and Ustick area. City of Meridian has constructed Fire Station number 8, the North Meridian Police Station off of Owyhee Storm Avenue. That's less than 2.4 miles from Dayspring. It's closer to Dayspring than it is your Fields area. The future Meridian Regional Park, which you guys have had for multiple years, 47 acres, is located east of McDermott, north of Cherry Lane. It's 370 feet from Dayspring subdivision to the southwest. Seasons Park, that's on our eastern boundary. We'll be connected to that via detached walks, pedestrian pathways, fully developed, 7 acres. Idaho Transportation Department is constructing phase 2 and phase 3 of State Highway 16 extension. That is going to be an expressway, a major expressway. The Ustick interchange is going to be completed in 2027 based on ITD's website. The McDermott bypass has been constructed. The traffic signal at Ustick at the bypass was completed at the end of 2024. Ada County Highway District is going to rebuild Ustick Road from 5 lanes from 10 Mile to Black Cat in 2025. Rebuild Ustick to 5 lanes from Black Cat to Owyhee Storm Avenue in 2027. City of Nampa is going to rebuild Ustick to 5 lanes from Owyhee Storm Avenue to the Phyllis Canal in 2027. Looking at ACHD's website, they indicate that the Ustick corridor is a mobility corridor. Mobility corridors are like Overland, State Street. Those are corridors that carry a high volume of traffic, and they're going to lead to that interchange, which then feeds out to I-84. The other thing to keep in mind is West Ada School District already has 2 elementary sites north of our site. One is just, you can throw a rock to on the north side of Ustick that's already there next to Spring Day. The other elementary site is over at Owyhee High School. So they have 2 sites that are already there and ready to go with utilities and streets whenever they decide to pull that trigger. This is a vicinity map. This shows the 47 acres in blue. This is the 47 acres that the City of Meridian owns as a future regional park. Our collector roadway is coming right down here. I'm only 370 feet away from this future regional park. So I guess my point is, we've got a lot of things that are happening in this area, a lot of money being spent by many, many agencies to open up this area, improve transportation, improve education. I had a meeting with Mike Moyle the day after your hearing. I went out and I met with him for over an hour. And I talked to him about the concerns of City of Star, concerns of the City of Meridian. And he said, I have a draft of a CID bill. And he said, and I have schools as part of it. Not only fire and police, but I also have schools. And he said, I'm taking this draft around. I've met with major developers in the county. He said, I've also been talking with fire and police departments. And he said, I'm going to be making the rounds. And he said, I understand the pressure that we have put on these cities with Bill 389. I did read Bill 389. And he said, I fully understand that they need another revenue source and that the pressure from growth needs to be addressed. And we as the legislature need to do something. And I said, well, I said, the development community is here to support you. I said, the cities, the mayors, the councils, I said, they are all begging for you to step up to the plate. And he said, I am doing that. And I'm going to be taking this draft around. And he said he has a meeting scheduled with Mayor Chadwick of Star. And he said he had some suggestions. I'll finalize. Anyway, I'm just saying that we're not sitting back. We're not just riding on our laurels. This is a really great project that is going to build significant infrastructure that obviously needs to be installed prior to road improvements. And I did do some research on where we are as a state on our median property taxes. We're 34th. Came out just the other day. Brand new stat. We're 34th out of 50 states for the median property tax on a single family dwelling. I think Alabama was last, which, yay, Alabama. So,
In conclusion,
we've got a great project. I've got great clients and we're excited. And the Spring Day project cannot carry the full burden of the cost to improve all of the collectors, the sewer, and the things that need to take place out here within this time frame. And I ask that the council support this project because it is a good project and it is the right time to get these things done. And that's all I got to say, unless you got a question.
council,
I'm
any
all out.
questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Mr. Mayor, Becky, I know that you went through it last week, but could you refresh my memory on the timeline? I remember it was 15 years, but like estimated like start of that, because there's so many moving parts to this.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Roberts, that's a good question. So we did have a significant number of phases within the Dayspring project, obviously because of its size, which is not unlike what we had at the Oaks North and Oaks South, which I did for Coleman Homes and Toll Brothers took it over. So it's, you know, they always want to build their central amenities within the first or the second phase, get the collectors in. I think we have a total of 13 phases total in this project. Typically what we see is we are paving a phase a year. And so, you know, it's obviously based on market conditions. Now, obviously with this particular project, you know, it's imperative we want U-stick 5 lanes. We want to get our sewer in. So the offsites are going to take a significant amount of time because it's a heavy lift to do 30-inch sewer, 30 feet deep, high groundwater. There's only certain times of the year that we can do it. Certain times we can shut McDermott down. So that's going to be the heavy lifting. So it's not like, hey, homes are popping up here next spring. That's not happening. I mean, I don't see homes coming up, you know, popping up until U-stick is 5 lanes. And it's an incremental process. And for Toll, you know, we'll have one phase under construction, getting ready to pave, and then we'll start another one for them. So they kind of, it's kind of like a cyclical thing. They don't want to run out of momentum or run out of lots, but it's not like I'm bringing on 13 phases in the next 2 years. That's just not happening. It can't happen. It's impossible. You just can't logistically do it. Plan approval takes us about a year anymore with Army Corps permits and city, ACHD. So it's a slow haul anymore.
Mr. Mayor, follow up.
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Mr. Mayor, Becky, you've been doing this a while, so just your best off the hook, Becky, guess, break ground on the first house in 2 years, 3 years?
I would say not until probably 2027. 2027.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Sonia, can you pull up the staff report? Particularly, I'm looking at it's page 5, the service impact summary, figure number 3.
Yes, give me just one moment, please.
Becky, I think we touched a little bit on this last week, but I have to admit, towards the end of the evening, my brain was a little foggy. So I don't know if it was something I intended to talk to you about or I did, so forgive me. I didn't go back and review the minutes. My questions are, when we look at this service impact tool, right, we rate things as ready, marginal, and caution. And there are some of these that I look at with greater emphasis. Well, transit and, distance to schools, or excuse me, distance to parks are important. They're not as important as sewer, EMS, police, fire. And so when I see there's caution for EMS, fire, and police, that worries me for our current residents in that area, but it certainly worries me about future residents in that area, that I wouldn't want to welcome people to our community unless we could meet the standard that we have provided to our other residents. Help me understand, to Councilmember Roberts' point, you've been doing this a long time, and I really value your expertise. But when I look at this, it causes me pause, and you're here before us with this information as well and still wanting to move forward. Help me understand what you and your client are going to do to overcome these very legitimate concerns about service in that area.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Cavanagh, obviously, we will be extending sewer. Water is already available to the site.
Yep.
There's a 12-inch water main right in front of U-Stick. It's already looped, it goes north on McDermott. So we'll be extending the sewer to this area, which obviously will serve other adjoining properties, including the future regional park that the city has.
And I think I'm less concerned about sewer. I'm more about,
Emergency services.
yeah, police and fire. They are rated
So-
as caution.
So you have your station number 8.
Yeah.
Which is just west on U-Stick and north on Owyhee Storm. That is less than 2.4 miles.
Mhm.
So it's almost a straight shot over to where my projects are. So I guess I'm struggling with, you've already made that investment in that general vicinity to serve development.
I hear you.
And it's anticipated that that will serve the Fields project, which that lift station, that Canada lift station isn't even online. In addition, it's going to improve service for this area, the existing residents, and then these residents. These residents aren't going to come online for a couple of years. And it's going to be an incremental process as these homes become occupied. I don't have any multifamily component where we're going to have 250 residents automatically, boom. This is going to be, 40, 50 lots at a time, and then the homes are built incrementally. So you've already had the expenditure in this area, and I guess I'm struggling with what am I lacking?
Well, and Becky, I think that is fair, and I agree with you. I guess maybe it's a question then for our police and fire, which is they're the ones that provide this data. Why is it coming back then as critical or caution? Because to your point, we've got a police and a fire station over there, but there must be some reason why in a staff report, it is our EMS fire and our EMS police are rated at caution. So I guess, Mr. Mayor, if it's.
Is that from Compass, or is that from your own fire and police
I
department?
believe it's from our fire department and our police department.
I thought the fire department, my recollection was had no comment. I don't know, am I?
Mr. Mayor, is it possible can we hear from police and fire? Because
Yeah.
that to me is the biggest hurdle for me to overcome is
You're looking at the compass, the little.
I'm looking at the staff report that's provided to us as council and the public to make these decisions.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Cavanagh. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not familiar with this service accessibility report for this specific project. I believe it was reviewed before I came on board.
Okay.
In saying that, I also would believe, just based on the response time here, that it was done before Station 8 was constructed. And that's just looking at on the surface. I could look into it in more detail for you if you'd like.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
I don't know where the rest of council is. To me, this is the hurdle to overcome. And so if this analysis was done before we built a station, I think in fairness, we've done the applicant a disservice, a great disservice. And so I do think that if we can spend some time and truth this out when this was completed and the data that we were used, because just being frank, I can't support something if we're hearing caution for our police and fire services and we're going to add a whole bunch of homes. So if we have erred in not doing this in a timely manner, let's get that and let's take some ownership for that. And that would very well likely at least address my major concern about this request before us.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Cavanagh, this project was submitted, I think on the 22nd of December of last year. So I am not sure when Station 8 is in operation.
It's a year before that. Sonia, can you speak to how this chart is filled out?
Mr. Mayor, Council, Brian McClure in our office designed this, and I can't fully explain it. I'm sorry. I am looking at our map to see if our current data matches this, though, if you'll give me just a moment.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
maybe while you're checking on that, I did just have a comment. I appreciate you sitting down with Mike Moyle. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. I was glad to do it. And I have his cell number and he says he wants to meet again. And I said,
Good.
I will take you up on that.
Yeah, I think sometimes people hearing the message from us doesn't get across as well, but sometimes other stakeholders have better luck. And I just, I don't like saying no to things. I actually don't. I do try to get to a yes. I'm going to have a hard time, especially if our levy fails. I'm going to have a really hard time until that bill gets fixed. And it's not, something that I think we're going to solve in this meeting, but I just wanted to compliment you. I think you are one of the people that takes community-wide problems seriously and takes a lot of ownership of trying your best to help. And I just wanted to say I'm very grateful for that. I really appreciate that about you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Whitlock.
While Sonia is looking that up, I had a similar question to Council President Cavanagh. The project last week to the north of this.
Here.
I'll be quick. The project to the north did not have similar. I'm done.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Cavanagh.
What I think good Councilmember Whitlock is saying is that the staff report for the Spring Day project did show that the services were marginal, not ready, but not in caution. And for me, that was certainly a basis is why I think I touched on that last week, a basis of why I was willing to support the days. So I think that's what you were trying to say before our feedback cut you off.
Correct.
So, Mr. Mayor, to respond to those questions, I'll go to Spring Day real quick first, because I was just looking at that. So it's in the yellow on Spring Day. And that is closer to Ustick Road, and that makes a difference too. The service accessibility tool differs on what parcel you select. So some of these larger parcels that have a bigger area, it can be a little bit different. So On the Dayspring property, I did look at all the parcels from Ustick Road clear to the south, and they are all showing red on emergency services for fire and police. And I can't tell you why. I don't know the difference between the spring day and and Dayspring and why they're coming up differently.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
Becky, I'm sorry. This is how this stuff kind of playing out. We're trying to figure out what methodology we're using in a staff report on the fly, and that's not acceptable. That's not how we typically do business. But Mr. Mayor, maybe it's a 10-minute recess so that we can hopefully get on the phone with the appropriate people, and so that we as council can feel like, regardless whatever decision we are intending or planning to make tonight, that it is with the most accurate information. And listen, staff, I thought I meant to flag this for you guys earlier, and I didn't do that, so falling very much in the blame falls largely on my shoulders. So Becky, I'm personally apologizing to you as well, but maybe Mr. Mayor, a 5-10 minute break for us to make sure that when the study was done, certainly if this report penalizes larger applications because of their size, solely because of their size, that to me is an important factor for me to be aware of. And if this was broken down into 15 separate projects for each phase, would it receive the same rating? So I think we've got some information that we need to truth. I don't know if we can figure it out in 5 or 10.
It maybe ask a general question that maybe can be answered. What's our current citywide response time on fire?
Mr. Mayor, our current citywide response time is anywhere between 7 and 10 minutes.
So wherever your feelings are on response times, this falls within somewhere to that level. So how someone is determining if it serves a red, yellow, or green? Don't know what determining factor they've chosen in this process as that pertains to your current, I don't know if this was a 5, would that be green? A 6 green? A 7 green?
Mr. Mayor, in all fairness, the applications that we see, we don't see caution for police and fire services. And so what that has told me is that whatever our subject matter experts' basis is for marginal, which I view as acceptable, this is worse than that. And I don't know why, because to the applicant's point, we've got a police station, a fire station that's pretty darn close to where this is. And so that's why I want to understand the why. And I'm just being frank, I'm a little frustrated that our subject matter experts for the city can't give me that explanation right now. And so I'd like to take some time so that, because again, I'm a no right now because of these things. Now, if we can provide the level of service that our citizens expect and what our future citizens would expect, I want to support this, but I can't right now. But if my opposition is based on incorrect data, I want to know that ASAP.
Then we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute recess to see if we can find the staff member who put this together to determine the information.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there is an explanation in the staff report. It's on screen on C, service assessment notes. And if we take a little break, I will try to get that information for you. Thank you.
Okay. We will reconvene as close to 6:50 as practical. All right, we'll go ahead and come on back from recess. Council, we do have Mr. McClure who's joined us, who's the person who helped put together this information, the staff report. So Brian, if you want to go ahead and unmute just so we can make sure we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, so council, questions you'd like to ask Mr. McClure?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
Brian, thanks for joining us, man. I'm sorry about this. Maybe two questions. One was the service report that is included in the staff report, the service impact tool. Was it using data before Station 8 was built and the auxiliary police station built?
Council, Mayor, Councilman Cavanagh, no, the tool uses existing data. Both of those points are in GIS, but they function very differently. Fire is based off response time, which is not just distance traveled, but also intersections, and then intersection delays. And then PD is not on response time, but on current crime statistics in the area. I don't actually know how all of that works. Right off the top of my head, it's based off of current PD reporting for how they do. They're mostly square mile blocks, and it's the number of crimes, the types of crimes, but it's not a response time factor. And they're both existing conditions only.
Mr. Mayor, quick follow-up.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Brian, you couldn't then say, here's why EMS, fire, EMS, police are rated at caution versus a neighborhood that's right across the street being rated as marginal.
Sometimes I can't say specifically off the cuff on this one. What happens very frequently though is when you look at a big project, it assumes the centroid, the center of that parcel. And since there's no roads, oftentimes those areas fall outside of easy access places. A lot of times developments, when they come online and they provide more roads, those things improve because there's more connectivity in the area. So if something is typically like yellow across the street, then I would expect something on the south side to also be yellow once they add in more roads. It's just existing conditions out there right now.
Okay. That's helpful.
And then on the PD side, their analysis grids, there's a term they use for that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they're separated by section miles. So something on the north could be completely different than something on the south based off the developments in their respective grids.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Steven. Oh, was that?
Councilman Taylor.
Oh, sorry, Councilman Taylor.
Yeah, I have a question for Brian. So kind of to clarify, so Brian, is it when you're looking at the data, are you doing it parcel by parcel and then considering the existing infrastructure that overlays the parcel by parcel? Is that correct? Am I just interpreting that or understanding it correctly?
Mayor, Councilman Taylor, could you maybe repeat that a little bit differently for me? I'm not quite tracking.
Sure. So what we're looking at here is a rather large development, which would include a lot of potential ownership parcels when you're kind of gridded out on a GIS map. So in my mind, I'm just wondering, because it's such a large parcel that doesn't have any infrastructure in it, but does that kind of increase the chances of like a red or a cautionary development? Because I'm just trying to understand how you take into account the entire project when there's no existing development agreement. So you have to look at the existing parcel map to understand it. Is that a little bit more clear?
Councilman Taylor, yes, I think I have a better handle of that now. So the entire tool is automated. It was developed in the 2019 comprehensive plan and then finessed a few years after that. It's fully automated. Every parcel in the city is run basically constantly, and it's based off of existing infrastructure in there. For projects that have multiple parcels, the planners typically just they click the one that's most center or the biggest, and they click on that one. What's most typical of the environment currently. So there could be some outliers that fall off into green and some that fall off into red, but they pick what's sort of the major component there, and they report on that primary sort of parcel in the center of that parcel. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Mr. Mayor, if I could just a quick follow-up.
Councilman Taylor.
I mean, we're looking at one of the larger developments proposals in quite a long time. And I'm just wondering, can you tell by looking at it, and it doesn't sound like you can because it's maybe automated, but if you picked a parcel that's just maybe far away from any existing infrastructure because it felt like it was the most accurate representation of the entire proposal, would that skew the results in a way that's not necessarily accurate? Just again, we're looking at a very large proposal, and I'm just wondering if it's somehow the automatic data being sent to us is a little bit skewed. So I'm just trying to gather some insight as to like what parcel and maybe where it was that was selected.
Councilman Taylor, I don't know who has the screen right now, but could you mouse up a little bit for me so I can see the parcel number?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Taylor, if I may respond to that, Brian, I did just now check all the parcels and all of them are red for fire and police, if that answers your question, Brian.
It does, yes. I mean, I'd also just note it's impossible not for things to be skewed a little bit just because there are so many parcels. And even if you have the lowest common denominator and it's just a tail end, you're not one number is not going to represent absolutely the entire project always. So things will always be a slightly skewed from that perspective. It's just sort of a snapshot of the area. I am trying to turn on this is Durango or Dayspring?
Dayspring.
Dayspring. Let me turn on fire response time. Give me 1 second. Fire response time does vary out here because there are some existing roads out there. The closest to U-Stick Road is fine. Down where the proposed collector is, Sonia can probably help you with that. That's all generally okay. Looking at it, I would expect all this area to be improved with development out here. But I think what Sonia has in her staff report is generally reflective just because of the size of the parcel. Most of this area is definitely currently red, but a lot of the area could be improved with more connectivity out here.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Yeah, just maybe the one last clarification, and I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to have some clarity. It seems like this is a very static representation of what we have. It's not taking into account the new roadway infrastructure and connectivity that we will have. So it's not dynamic in that it's anticipating that. Is that an accurate way to understand this? I'm looking at the caution as I understand it today. It's not taking into account the new roadways, the new connectivity that we'll have in several years from now.
Mayor, Councilman Taylor, that's correct. I'm not sure I would call it static, but it is a snapshot of right now. It goes back to the desire in 2019 to have growth priority areas, and this was intended to help understand what areas are most ready for growth. Infill generally being prioritized heavily actually in this tool. It is not a development review tool, and it does not necessarily reflect what the applicant is proposing in front of you. Those things are very different. The purpose and intent of those things is very different.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor.
Brian, just for context, also like just the very top one within a half-mile of city limits, it's yellow. Is that saying the furthest point away from the annexation? Because you have to be, to annex, you need to be connected to city. So how does that apply in this? I mean, I think it's just a data point amongst many, but just trying to understand how you get a yellow of being with the half-mile of city limits if you have to be contiguous.
The city limit boundaries are measured from the edge of the partial lines. So the partial that Sonia selected there, the S12, blah, 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 ending in 500, that one is within half a mile of existing city limits measured from the edge. Does that answer your question?
Ish.
Okay.
I just don't know how it applies generally. If you're contiguous, you would think you would have to be neck adjacent to city limits, not within a half a mile, but I digress. That's really just my, Councilman Overton.
Mr. Mayor, Brian, emergency services police is on the screen, not enough data to report an average response time. With no data or not enough data to report average response time, does it defaulting to red?
Yes, it's just a snapshot point to, hey, we don't know enough. We don't know what's out here. It could be, typically it's because the data is so low that the value is suppressed. And the red is just a, hey, look at me. It's not meant to be a grade or a rank. And even if you look up top, the overall score in second percentile, that's just reflecting of every partial compared to every partial. It doesn't mean whether something's good or bad, or again, how that reflects on the actual proposed development.
Mr. Mayor, follow up.
Councilman Overton.
So Brian, if being we have a brand new police station within the last 2 years, 2.4 miles away from this location, and we had enough data and we showed quick response times, this could actually be green.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Overton, I don't know. Unlike fire, it is not just based off of how fast something gets there. It's also based off of the type of responses and calls they receive in the area. And I think there's 3 different tiers there. All 3 of those are factored. I don't actually have access to that information. We checked it a few months ago when something broke, but it's not just how fast they can get there. It also deals with the type of crime and the types of calls they're responding to.
And my guess, if there's not enough data to report, is because there's no crimes that have occurred.
Or there hasn't been a spread. I'd have to look into the math. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there's definitely not enough data to report something that would be fair.
Brian, don't go anywhere, but you're good.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Overton.
I'm certainly ready to move on from that chart. I think we're going to have to at this point, after talking to police and fire and having Brian talk. I think in this case, for whatever reason, we need to discount some of what we're seeing in that chart as not being accurate.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
I have no other questions for the applicant. Unless anyone else on council does, I'm maybe give the applicant a one last opportunity to provide any closing comments in light of the rigmarole that we've put them through.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I appreciate your effort trying to analyze everything. I mean, these are important decisions for your community, important decisions that affect property owners, developers. We did look at Apple Maps. Apple Maps shows a 5-minute response from your fire station number 8 to the subject property. When we build these collectors out, we're obviously going to improve response time not only to our property, but the adjoining subdivisions, because they can shoot down our collector and get over to Autumn Fair a lot faster. They can wind through their circuitous roadway network. Sonia put up on the screen kind of a little qualifier that says that a project should not be approved or denied due to these data points. I don't know if you noticed that, but that was kind of unusual. I mean, obviously statistics, we do the best we can with statistics, but sometimes they don't always give us a full picture. So I ask that the council obviously consider the logic here, the big picture of this project and what this project will bring to the city of Meridian, and I ask you to support it. Thank you very much.
Council, additional questions for the applicant? Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
I move that we close the public hearing on item H 2024-0070.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing on H 2024-0070. Is there discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
glad to start off with comments. Going back to last Tuesday, I guess I looked at both of these projects as being connected, related, unable to separate the two of them to satisfy the agreement that we would make as a city having to do with the extension of the sewer. When we talk about the city can't afford to do this, it's almost like the city can't afford not to do this. I confirmed this morning with our Public Works Director that the savings to the city for the sewer is a minimum of $5 million. The savings to the city is that they will put that sewer in the ground through Ustick Road before it's made into 5 lanes. If we allow ACHD to complete that road, when ACHD completes that road in 27, and then in FY 28, we were approved to do that city, then we have to go tear up a brand new 5-lane road to put in a sewer at our full cost, which, as was pointed out, could be higher than what our applicants are going to be able to get it done for. We always get challenged when it comes to schools. Is there going to be enough room in the schools? And because this sits on the south side of the road, the schools that are impacted, every one of those schools, from the elementary, the middle school to the high school, are extremely under attended right now. There are no issues with West Ada. And as was pointed out in the letter from West Ada School District, they have the room and already set for 2 elementary schools, and they have no need with these projects to go forward with those schools. They're fully confident that they have the room within the West Ada School District to house any additional students that come from this project or these 2 projects. I stood in amazement when we saw that chart, realizing that we had opened up within the last 2 years, the fire and police station so close, and yet we could have a report like that that said it was poor. I don't have an answer for that. I don't think any of us up here do today. I know that having the North Station plus Fire Station number 8 within 2.5 miles of this location, all of our response times are going to be some of the best in the city. We're going to be in great shape. The transportation, which is always one of my biggest concerns, because this has got so many phases and it's going to take so long, and we're going to have Ustick out to 5 lanes by 2027, and we're going to have the completion of the limited access Highway 16. To me, it seems like it's not just the perfect timing to get this started, but we've got the roadway finally being built before most of this construction is completed. Now, it goes without saying, if we were talking about 2 big projects like this and we did not have some agreement on the sewer and we had 2-lane country roads out here that weren't going to be done until 2031 or 2032, I would be a no already. Right? I mean, this is something that's not going to happen. But we have all the pieces in place. We've already put all those pieces in place. We've done a darn good job, I think, as a city, and working with our ACHD partners and working with West Ada School District to be prepared for these 2 big projects and to be the benefactor of saving at least $5 million, if not more, on this project, partnering with the developer in this case. So with that said, I absolutely support this project moving forward.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
I don't need to beat a dead horse. I'll just refer to my comments from last week. I stand by them, and I think I further explained my concern. I think it's an interesting intellectual exercise to ask yourself if you had requests for numerous accelerations of our sewer infrastructure simultaneously, how that would play out. I just think we need to be disciplined about how we grow. And within that is because of specifically the context around our city's financial circumstances. And I will reiterate that I deeply appreciate Becky McKay having a conversation with Mike Moyle about the 389 bill and how important it is to me personally that that bill is fixed. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Whitlock.
try this again. I appreciated the public hearing that we had and the testimony and the input. This is my district, and so very concerned about what's happening and the growth pattern that will be out there. And I heard from constituents and in the public testimony concerns about traffic. I also heard from the applicant that they were willing to address some of those concerns with traffic calming devices on Tricia Way. And I think that satisfied some of the concerns. I mentioned this last week, but again, it's not their project. It's to the south. Somebody else owns that parcel. And over the course of a 13-phase development, there may come a time when that property to the south comes before us and that connection down to Black Cat is made as a egress from this particular property. So I think that will be addressed at some point in the future, potentially the near future. Because I do think that the infrastructure from a police and fire standpoint is there, and certainly with this trunk line going in from a sewer standpoint, the water's already there. I think there will be more opportunities, and we'll have an opportunity to address the additional transportation concerns that came up during the public hearing. I'm supportive of the cooperative development agreement. I think it's a unique opportunity for us to share some of those costs and to get the infrastructure in place. I appreciate the intellectual exercise of what would we do if we had multiple cooperative development agreements in front of us. I think Warren indicated that there are probably only a handful of opportunities like that, 2 or 3, I think, if I recall from the presentation. So that's not a limiting factor for me. I think I can be consistent based on the fact that we won't see a flood of these types of cooperative development agreements. As Becky went through her slides tonight, I appreciated the one slide that indicated both the one-time and the ongoing revenues that would come and investments that would be made. In my own mind, I tried to factor what the average valuation of a home would be in that area, assign a property tax value to that, and would that be sufficient to cover some of the ongoing operational expenses. And so I appreciate you doing the math for me. That's not my strong suit, but it was helpful to see those numbers of what the ongoing revenues would be to help on the operational side. I think those are my main points, and I appreciate the fact that we were able to get some additional information tonight, and it was helpful in crystallizing things in my mind of where we need to go with this project.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
I appreciate the opportunity to kind of take another stab at this. It was helpful to spend a week kind of contemplating the testimony to be taken. I went back and reread the staff report. I actually am glad we had that conversation on some of the metrics to kind of look at that. I think it was all helpful and healthy. As I look at this project, I share a lot with what Councilman Overton shared, and so I won't repeat too much of that, but I would just make a couple of points. You know, there was some discussion, is this a priority growth area? I think it's clear we've made it that. I think the infrastructure that is out there with ACHD, with ITD, with the city's own investment in some, police and fire stations, we've clearly identified this as a place where we want to grow and where we want to put the infrastructure. And those conversations started years ago to do that. So I don't feel like this project is accelerating growth beyond what we've really anticipated. I really appreciate the creativity of the idea of a cooperative agreement. Um, I spent a lot of time on that. I had a lot of questions. I feel like it's a really good deal for the city of Meridian. I think that I appreciate the applicant being willing to go out on a limb a little bit and to kind of work with us and have a good partnership and relationship with the city to get this done. I think that's very unique. I appreciate that, and I think the city will benefit from that. And as was mentioned, the fiscal impact I think will be significant. A lot of discussion if our concerns about operating costs are sufficient. I certainly don't disregard those comments at all. I think there's a lot of validity to that, and that's why we're having bigger and broader discussions about public safety levies and so forth. But I think if it were true that our operating concerns about operating costs were so acute, I think we should be talking about moratoriums because I don't think this project alone justifies that. I think, again, I don't dismiss that because we are in a very difficult financial situation, but I don't, my own looking through the budget and contemplating, I don't think the operating costs on this project alone is enough to justify saying no to it. I think there's more benefits than there are liabilities. And in fact, I see a lot of benefit here. So again, if it's true that our operating costs are such a problem, we really should be having a discussion about 6-month or 12-month moratoriums, and I don't think that we're there. I'll just end with this. I think I think this is a great project. I want to thank the applicant for bringing it. I can only imagine the amount of man hours and time and resources that have been put into this. Thank you for helping us build out a really nice city. I think as I was looking through it, I think this will be a good project. It's in one of the fastest growing areas of town. I think we're going to see a lot of interest there, especially as these other projects get done. So I'm going to be supporting this tonight, and but I do appreciate the vigorous discussion all around.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Mr. Mayor and council, without reiterating the comments from my last three council members, I concur. I think that this is a great project in what's turned out to be the right space. We have a new fire station, new police station, new high school, and so it really has kind of become the perfect spot, even if we didn't intend it that way at the time all this was happening. I think being able to put the sewer in and not have the road torn up twice and have a great savings to the city is a huge benefit. I mean, this is a huge project. I'm glad we've been so thoughtful and had such great discussions. Definitely let us look at how we do our processing and things like that with regarding to the GIS system and things. So thank you for your patience as we're still in the process of working through that. But I think that we've really gained a comfort level tonight with that system to know that we really are okay public safety wise in that area and that the development will contribute to the city being able to maintain that as we move along, and that it's not going to happen overnight, and that infrastructure will go in prior, that the whole city in that area needs will go in prior to the houses actually starting to be built. So with all of that, I will be supporting the project.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Brief, but thanks to our staff for kind of pivoting kind of last minute to help us get some additional information, and certainly patience for the applicant and the public. I know at one point or another, all of us have heard from somebody in our community that talks about get the infrastructure in place before you build. This is a project where the infrastructure is in place, which is why I have had such concerns when a staff report says caution when it comes to the things that we have direct control of, which is emergency responses. Recognizing that maybe we use some data sources or data points to make some determinations about if something is, if you should have caution or not aside, because I believe the location of our police and our fire. And certainly I very much have strong faith in the data from West Ada that we're continuing to see a shift and a trend down in school enrollment, that a long phase project like this will Students will be generated just in time that the schools, again, will be able to continue to accommodate that student growth. These houses will come online as we were going to be able to bring on additional firefighters and additional police officers to meet the need in this area. So with my hesitation about some of the data in the staff report aside, I'm satisfied with this application because I do think it brings a lot of value to our community. And I too will be in support of the motion this evening.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Overton.
if there's no further comments, I'll move forward with the motion. Mr. Mayor, after considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, knowing that this project is contingent upon both the city and developer's mutual intent to enter into cooperative agreement to extend sewer service to the property ahead of the city's scheduled infrastructure project, I move to approve file number H 2024-0070 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of today, July 15th, 2025.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve the item. Does that motion include all the comments from staff and applicant pertaining to all the provisions regarding traffic calming measures, et cetera, that were discussed last week? Was that the intention?
Mr. Mayor, yes, it does.
Second concurs.
All right. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Little Roberts.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
Strader.
No.
Whitlock.
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 nay, and the item is agreed to. Thank you, everybody, for the coming back in the conversation. Brian, appreciate you getting back on this evening to help us out, and good luck. I guess we'll see you back here before it moves forward again for further conversation, but that'll be part of it. So with that, we'll move on to item 2 for the evening, which is a public hearing for proposed home court fees and adult sports fees for Meridian Parks and Recreation Department. Open this public hearing with comments from Mr. White.
Mr. Mayor, members of staff, thanks for having me tonight. In front of you is the proposed home court fees and a handful of the adult sports fees for volleyball and basketball coming up. A couple weeks ago, I was in front of you kind of proposing these fees and getting feedback from you guys. And since then, we posted these fees in the paper. We also post these fees on site at home court, try to get feedback from participants and stuff like that. The primary response we got was, yeah, you haven't raised fees for 9 to 10 years. This is expected. All around, I was talking to the gentleman today, same response. So with that, I'll stand for questions if you have some.
Thank you, Garrett. Council, any questions for staff? Okay. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the room or online that would like to provide testimony on this item? If you're online, use the raise your hand feature. Seeing no one raise their hand, Councilman Cavanagh.
Sorry, Dean. Thank you. No credit to Garrett for being online and in person at the same time, but seeing nobody putting their hand up to testify, I move we close the public hearing on proposed home court fees and fall adult sport fees for the Meridian Parks and Rec Department.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there a discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The public hearing is closed. So next item up is item 3, which is resolution number 25-2526.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Whitlock.
I move that we approve item number 3, resolution number 25-2526, a resolution adopting home court fees and fall adult sports fees, Meridian Parks and Rec.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 25-2526. Is there discussion on the motion?
Fair.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Quickly before a vote, I know this is kind of a simple resolution before us, but it's the result of a lot of great work from our staff, our Parks Commission, our good Parks liaison, and I want to thank Garrett for being really responsive to the feedback and working proactively to meet the needs of this facility, both currently and in the long run. So really, really great work and much, much appreciated.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Little Roberts.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Overton.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Whitlock.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. The item is agreed to. Council, anything on our future meeting topics? We're a motion to adjourn.
Mayor?
Councilman Schrader.
It seems like it would be great to have a workshop about the components that go into our staff reports in that table and just maybe some follow-up on what goes into that, how does fire assess it, how does police assess it, and expectations as well, just when people come, that they're kind of ready to specifically discuss, or we make sure the right people are in the room and all of that. So that's my only suggestion for a future meeting topic.
Anything else? And do I have a different motion? Councilman Cavanagh.
Move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Motion second, adjourn the meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.